Nobody talks about what's actually happening inside your fuel injectors right now as you drive, and that silence is costing you money every single time you fill up. Here's something that will change how you think about your car forever. The gap between a well-maintained engine and a struggling one often comes down to a chemical process so simple, so cheap, and so overlooked that most mechanics would rather you never find out about it. Let's start with some engineering reality. Modern fuel injectors are among the most precise mechanical components ever mass-produced for a consumer product. The spray nozzles operate at pressures exceeding 2000 psi in direct injection engines, and the apertures through which fuel is atomized are smaller than a single strand of human hair. That's not poetic exaggeration. That's a tolerance so tight that a carbon layer thinner than a coat of paint is enough to destroy the spray geometry entirely. When the spray pattern degrades, fuel no longer atomizes properly. Instead of a fine conical mist that burns cleanly and completely, you get an uneven stream, and an uneven stream means incomplete combustion, wasted fuel, excess carbon baking onto the combustion chamber walls, and a slow, invisible degradation of your engine's performance that you'll never trace back to its source without knowing what to look for. Here's what makes this particularly insidious. Carbon deposit buildup doesn't come with a warning light or a dramatic symptom at first. It chips away at things gradually. Your fuel economy drops by a mile or two per gallon. You blame the gas station, the weather, your driving habits. The engine idles with a faint roughness you convince yourself is normal for a car with some miles on it. Throttle response feels slightly blunted when you need to merge onto a highway. And by the time you actually feel something is definitively wrong, independent testing has shown that heavily fouled injectors can reduce overall combustion efficiency by close to 10%, meaning for every dollar you spend on fuel, roughly 10 cents is being wasted through unburned hydrocarbons pushed out the exhaust pipe or baked onto your engine's internal surfaces. Now here is where it gets genuinely interesting, because the automotive maintenance industry has handed most drivers a solution that ranges from ineffective to actively harmful. The standard shop service, a pressurized solvent flush directly into the fuel rail, sounds impressive. Technicians hook a canister of concentrated cleaning chemicals into your fuel system, run the engine on pure solvent, and charge you anywhere between $250 and $400 for the privilege. But independent flow testing on vehicles that underwent this service revealed something deeply uncomfortable. The high-pressure solvent blasts are aggressive enough to dislodge hardened varnish deposits from fuel system walls and screens, but not always aggressive enough to dissolve them. Those dislodged chunks migrate downstream and embed themselves directly in the injector's microfilter basket or valve seat, the precise locations where a partial obstruction causes the most damage. In documented cases, vehicles emerged from this service with injectors that leaked, misfired, or showed worse flow variance than before the cleaning. You paid to make your engine worse. The alternative comes from a maintenance philosophy baked into Japanese automotive engineering culture going back decades, and it's rooted in one fundamental distinction: prevention is not the same thing as repair. Toyota and Honda engineers, particularly in markets like Southeast Asia and Puerto Rico where fuel quality and heat create accelerated deposit conditions, developed maintenance schedules built around a specific class of fuel additive used at regular, proactive intervals, not in response to a problem, but specifically to prevent one from ever developing. The compound at the heart of this approach is polyetheramine, commonly abbreviated as PEA. It was originally developed by Chevron's research division in the 1980s, and the chemistry behind it explains exactly why it works when other products don't. Most discount fuel system cleaners sold at convenience stores and discount auto parts shops use basic petroleum-derived solvents. The problem is that combustion chamber temperatures regularly exceed 400 degrees Celsius, and these cheap solvents simply burn off before they've had meaningful contact time with the carbon deposits they're supposed to remove. PEA is thermally stable at those temperatures. Research published in the SAE International Journal of Fuels and Lubricants confirms that polyetheramine survives the combustion environment intact, bonds at a molecular level with carbon deposits on injector tips and combustion surfaces, forms a molecular layer complex with those deposits, and then the flow of fresh fuel through the system mechanically carries that complex away, cleanly, safely, and completely, with no residue. The deposit is essentially unwrapped from the metal surface and expelled through the exhaust. It's not burned off, it's systematically dismantled and removed. But the chemical alone isn't sufficient. The method of application determines whether you're using it at therapeutic concentration or wasting it entirely. This is the specific protocol that separates results from disappointment. You wait until your fuel tank is at or below a quarter full before adding the cleaner. This is non-negotiable. A 12-ounce bottle of PEA-based cleaner added to a near-empty tank delivers roughly 4 times the active concentration compared to the same bottle dumped into a full tank. Diluted PEA barely cleans. Concentrated PEA is genuinely transformative. You pour the entire bottle in, not half, the entire bottle, then immediately fill the tank with top-tier certified gasoline. That certification matters more than most people realize. In the early 2000s, Toyota, Honda, BMW, and General Motors collectively determined that the EPA's minimum fuel detergent standards were insufficient to protect modern engine hardware. They co-created the top-tier gasoline standard, which mandates 2 to 3 times the minimum detergent concentration. AAA's independent testing later found that consistent use of top-tier fuel reduces carbon deposits by between 45% and 72% over 5,000 miles compared to non-certified gasoline. The extra cost at the pump is less than 1 cent per gallon. Then you drive, not a short urban errand, but a sustained 30-minute highway run that brings the engine to full operating temperature and generates the heat cycles PEA needs to work most effectively. Some experienced technicians recommend occasional acceleration to higher RPM ranges during this drive to maximize combustion chamber temperature and cleaning action. Real-world documentation from owner forums and long-term fleet testing backs up the chemistry. Documented cases include vehicles with degraded fuel economy and off-specification fuel trim readings that return to factory parameters after a single treatment using the quarter-tank method with a high-concentration PEA product. Persistent misfires traced to fouled injectors that had already resisted coil swaps, plug replacements, and cheaper cleaners were resolved with 2 bottles of a high PEA formulation and a 200-kilometer drive. A $20 fix that prevented an injector replacement bill that would have exceeded $800. The products with the highest documented PEA concentrations include Chevron Techron Concentrate Plus, Redline SI1, and Gumout Regain High Mileage, with PEA content ranging from roughly 30% to over 50% by volume based on published safety data sheets. These numbers matter. A product with 5% PEA and a product with 40% PEA are not the same product, regardless of what the marketing copy says. There's one category of engine where this preventive protocol is especially critical, and that's gasoline direct injection, GDI, which now powers the majority of new vehicles sold globally. In a GDI engine, fuel is injected directly into the combustion chamber rather than the intake port, which means injector tips are bathed in heat and combustion byproducts constantly. Deposit accumulation is faster and more severe than in traditional port injection designs. There's a secondary complication. Because fuel in a GDI engine never flows across the back of the intake valves, the natural detergent action of the gasoline itself, which in port injection engines kept intake valves relatively clean, simply doesn't exist. For GDI owners, PEA-based maintenance isn't optional if you want long-term engine health. The maintenance interval is simple. Every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, or every oil change, whichever comes first. Add 1 full bottle of a high-concentration PEA cleaner to a near-empty tank, fill immediately with top-tier fuel, drive with intention. Between treatments, use top-tier fuel exclusively. That's the complete protocol. No tools, no lift, no risk, no shop visit. An $8 bottle every 5,000 miles works out to roughly $160 per 100,000 miles of proactive injector maintenance. A full injector replacement on a 6-cylinder engine with labor can run $800 to $2,000 depending on the platform. The economics aren't even close. The Japanese automakers who helped write the top-tier standard and build some of the highest mileage engines ever documented didn't stumble into longevity by accident. They built it into the maintenance culture from the beginning, and that culture starts with an $8 bottle and the discipline to use it before you ever need to. If this gave you something genuinely useful today, hit like and share this with someone who owns a car and doesn't know any of this. That's basically everyone. Subscribe if you want more content built on actual research and real-world results rather than recycled shop advice. And drop a comment telling us what country you're watching from. We read every single one and we want to know where our community is growing. See you in the next one.